Hi, I'm Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream. Today, what will it take to ensure school meal programs are nutritious, safe, and sustainable? In part one of our discussion, we looked at the impact school meals have on a child's ability to be productive. Take a look.
My name is Nautica Williams, and I'm a senior from Oakland High. And I would say school lunch overall through my high school experience has been pretty bad. At this point, students don't want to eat breakfast, they don't want to eat lunch, and so they leave campus and they buy foods like chips and soda, because basically lunch is either very moldy, or it's not tasty, or it's just gross, it's undercooked, it's overcooked, or it's just not appetizing for students. And so throughout the day we either go hungry or we have to leave and spend our money, and that's not really productive.
Today, the challenges of providing those quality meals, and we'll also examine various initiatives that are shaping communities around the world. School meals have been credited for getting children back into the classroom. India has the largest meal program in the world, feeding an estimated 120 million school children.
There were millions of hungry children in the country, and many of them were not going to school. And yet, there were tons of excess grains rotting away in government storehouses. At first, the program simply consisted of grain distribution. 3 kilograms of grains were given to school children to take home once a month. But it soon became apparent that grains couldn't keep children in school. They would only show up on days when the grains were distributed. As a result, instead of giving out grains, schools started preparing daily cooked meals for the students. The program has a positive impact on enrollment and attendance, especially for girls. For many, the program offers the only reliable source of food and their only regular source of lentils, vegetables, and in some states, eggs.
I got to eat an egg for the first time.
Well, like India, many other countries are working to find ways to keep students in their seats. To help us talk about this, in Lima, Peru, Carmen Barbado de Lara, country director at the World Food Program and lead author of the organization's global report on school feeding. Swati Narayan is an Indian food rights activist coming to us from London. With us on set, Rodney Taylor is the Director of Food and Nutrition Services for Fairfax County Public Schools in Springfield, Virginia. And Lucy Melcher works at the Share Our Strength organization in Washington, D.C. She's the Director of Advocacy and Government Relations, leading the No Kid Hungry campaign.
Guests, audience, have a look on my laptop. I'm not sure I quite believe my eyes here, Rodney. Little kids at a salad bar at school.
Yes.
What is this dark magic that you did here in Virginia?
I was waiting on this because I wanted to give a counter vision of what Nadia's experience was. I like to tell a parent I'm going to take their 5-year-old and we're going to teach them to be lifelong healthy eaters by teaching them to eat the colors. They go through the salad bar where we encourage them to eat the colors, and when they go through, they get a little sticker that says, I have a rainbow in my tummy. We're taking the focus off the center of the plate and putting it more on fruits and vegetables so that kids are nourished properly. And beyond that, when we've taught that kid to be a lifelong health eater, when they leave elementary school, they go to a middle school where they can experience a daily outdoor barbecue where we offer hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken patties, sausage patty, and rib patties, or in the high school where we have the rotisserie chicken ovens, and where kids can smell their food.
Rodney, I can smell the food right now.
Yes,
okay.
Very different experience.
Wow. I mean, this whole idea of making food healthy, not just feeding kids, but making them healthy. Are you seeing that online, Mika?
I am seeing it. I'm going to bring up this tweet. This is actually from a stream producer, but I'm bringing it up because I know so many people online who are around his age, my age, can relate. This is Adam, who says, in my day, we ate melted cheese on a split hot dog bun with a side of meaty spaghetti sauce for dipping. Behold the Italian dunker. You can see it right there. I know that my friends and I would open just bags of chips and put them all together, and that would be our meal. So when he tweeted this out, we actually got this response from Franz. This is Reem Sarah, who says, In France, we have a chef and dietitians who meet regularly to prepare balanced meals with real veggies and meat. Sodas are prohibited. She says portions are adapted to the children's age. A meal has to last at least 30 minutes. So clearly this is an example, Carmen, of a school system that's getting it right. Is this difficult to implement? Chefs in schools sounds difficult.
Well, countries have different ways of dealing with this, but one thing that I really want to point out is quality needs to be more important than quantity, and this seems to be something that France, for example, is focusing on. Italy focuses on. Some states in the U.S. are also doing that, and the UK. And this is something that's very important because of the obesity and overweight problem that we're seeing in a lot of high-income countries and a lot of middle-income countries. And school feeding programs that provide lunches or breakfast to children in school are important because aside from feeding them, they also teach children how to eat better. And they take that knowledge to their homes, to their friends, and they learn how to choose food better, better eating choices that follow them through adulthood and through their having children of their own. So I just wanted to highlight the importance of not just focusing on undernutrition, which is an issue that we're dealing with in poor countries, but also obesity and overweight. That is an issue that's coming up a lot in the richer countries and in middle-income countries.
Carmen, let me just share this tweet that you shared. Yeah. Go ahead, Swati, you go first.
I agree with you, and I think one of the main things is to ensure sustainability. And whether it is undernutrition or overnutrition, one way of ensuring that is by making it a right of every child to have these meals. And in fact, right now, when we have this problem with the identity card, the fact is that there are two legislations which guarantee this school meals in India. One is the Right to Education Act, and the other is the Right to Food Act, the National Food Security Act. And because of this, we're able to guarantee these meals. And the other thing is there are 6 Supreme Court orders which say that producing an identity card should at best be a voluntary exercise. It should definitely not be enforced on any child. And I think this is also, in terms of sustainability, we have an education cess, a tax that finances these meals. And I think this is a good way of ensuring both quality and quantity. I believe a lot of Latin American countries have similar things, like El Salvador, which has privatized nationalized some firms and used that tax revenue or put it in a trust fund and used it for meals. So I think there are various combinations that different countries can use, and saying that it's not feasible to finance it is probably a very, is an argument that really doesn't hold, especially in developed countries.
Swati, I'm just going to say for people who've just joined us for this part of the conversation and didn't hear the previous one, that India is introducing the idea of children having to have an identity card in order to pick up their school food or be fed at school, which is what she was referencing as you were chatting. Lucy.
I mean, I think what this really brings up is that, as you were talking about the idea of whether or not we can afford to be providing these meals, you know, as Rodney was saying earlier in the show, providing meals to kids at school isn't just the right thing to do. We don't just do this because it's a morally acceptable thing to do to make sure that kids aren't going hungry. We do it because it's the smart thing to do. It's smart for schools financially. They are able to draw down resources to be able to prepare these meals, and the more meals that they're able to prepare, the more resources they can draw down to keep making healthier meals. And we also know, as we've talked about, the more meals that, or the more kids that are getting meals at school, the smarter the kids are going to be. They're going to be healthier, and they're going to do better in school. I just wanted to make a comment about sort of the healthy school meal piece. I heard a great story the other day about a grocery store in a town in Pennsylvania where the owner of the grocery store had to call the head of the school, which Rodney will probably appreciate, and said, you know, you got to give me kind of a heads up when you're going to be serving really popular things in your school. And the school director said, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, I'm completely sold out of red bell peppers, because you served them in the snack line at school and you served them in your salad bar, and every kid went home and told their parents, I ate this delicious pepper at school and now I want you to go buy it for me. And all the parents were going to the grocery store trying to find the pepper. And I think it's just a great example that meals don't just sort of provide the nutrition that kids need. They're providing sort of this lifelong appreciation for good, healthy food, and for this idea that meals are wonderful when they're shared together as well, whether that's in the classroom or with your peers at school.
So let me give you another example. Let me give you another example why it's important. During the testing week in the United States, and I've been in school food for 30 years now, invariably I'll get a call from a principal saying, I want every kid to eat free. I'll pay for it, don't worry about it. This is during testing week. So the inference is that a child will perform better during test week.
Wow.
And so my argument would be that if in fact, and there's no empirical evidence that that is true, no research that proves that if a kid eats during the week, they're going to test better. But there is evidence that says that if a child eats breakfast every day, they will perform better in school, in math, in English. Their attendance improves, their behavior improves, less visits to the nurses, less interruptions. And if that's true, then the question begs, are we teaching for tests to keep our jobs, or are we teaching for kids to excel in school?
What do you say to that school district that gets in touch with you to say, hey, let's get the kids some food this week, tests next week?
Shame on us. Shame on us.
Is that what you say to them?
That's right. Shame on us for what about the other 360 days or the 180 or 75 days of the school year? We should be making sure the kids are well fed. Listen to this. We let 5-year-olds in America come to school and decide whether they're going to go play or they're going to go eat. You wouldn't do that at home with your own child. You're going to make sure that they're fed and ready to learn. We should do that.
I just wanted to jump in here because it's really important to keep in mind that it is a very smart investment.
Absolutely.
One of the studies that we've done in WFP is calculate the cost, the return on investment of school feeding. And we found that for every dollar invested in school meals, you get, or countries get, about $3 back, basically on increased productivity of children. They just simply go on to have better and more productive lives. And one thing that we haven't talked about in the program so far is the benefits of school feeding on local agricultural production if the programs are mixed with local procurement of food that farmers are growing around the school or in the same district or in the same provinces. So you can actually re-inject those resources into the same community and also ensure that children are getting more nutritious, fresher food. The other issue that also kind of feeds into that cost-benefit analysis is the impact that these programs have, for example, on the most vulnerable kids that are most sensitive to shocks, like to disasters, or when the price of food goes up. So we've seen countries, for example, like Haiti, increase the size of their programs after the earthquake, or in Ecuador, in Peru, for example, now just after the flooding that we've just had, the government is increasing the reach of the program to make sure that children that were affected by floods get covered under the safety net. So there's a lot of different benefits that school meals have that reach much beyond the school and much beyond the children into the communities themselves and become this virtuous cycle.
I'm really glad that you brought this up. And Lucy also made this point earlier about the importance of food being locally procured. But I was a little surprised because a couple of years ago I was in Kenya, and there I found that the World Food Program was giving children school meals based on bulgur wheat, which had been grown in Texas, and oil, which had been procured from Japan or Spain. So I just wondered, what is the policy of the World Food Program? Are meals always locally sourced and locally procured, or have you changed your policy over the years?
Well, WFP has changed its policy over the years because also the knowledge that we've had on school feeding and what works and what doesn't has changed. So now, for example, more and more the food that WFP provides in the different programs is locally procured. Not all of it can be bought locally, sometimes because there's just not enough food in the markets where we need it, or in other cases where some specific food option, for example, is found in the country next door, or we also try to combine food that's donated by countries like the US or like Europe with food that's procured locally. So now more and more the programs are mixed, and that also has the benefit that they're more cost effective if you do the right analysis to see if it's cheaper to buy locally, if it's cheaper to bring the food, and do the combination of the two to make sure that the programs are the best they can be.
It's always better to, I'm really glad you've changed your policies, and it's always better to procure locally because, for example, in India, not only do we support farmers through this, but we have 2.5 million cooks who are employed. But I was wondering also, because in India, a couple of years ago, we had the biscuit lobby who started writing to all parliamentarians and saying, we don't want hot-cooked good meals for children, but we want it to be replaced with biscuits. And it was with a lot of effort that we had to ensure that the media took this up as a big story. And finally, that the government said, no, it is the right of every child to have a freshly cooked meal, locally sourced and locally cooked. So I'm glad the World Food Programme has changed
I'd like to jump in here because in a perfect world, we all would buy locally, and I did so largely in California when I ran a school district there. Over 50% of the produce we bought was local. Well, California has a 9-month growing season. It's a huge state. I'm now in Virginia, where the growing season is 3 months. I run the 10th largest school district in the country. So if I told every farmer in the state of Virginia I'd buy what they grow, they still wouldn't be able to produce enough. And so we do know the merits of buying locally. It does put money back into the local economy. It supports the small farmer who may not have a market for their undersized fruit or their blemished vegetables, and it's an opportunity for us to reconnect children with the farm and bring farmers in the classroom. We spoke earlier about using your chefs. These are all of the folks that you bring to bear on a community. We're not involved in changing food in the cafeteria. We're involved in transforming a food system to ensure that kids are consuming enough nutrients so that they're not stunted in growth. And it's short-sighted to say that it's too expensive up front. It's too expensive not to do it. What wouldn't you do for your own child? Sure. When we care enough for all children the way we care for our own, we'll be okay.
All right, so guests, give me a moment here. Give me a moment here, guests. Swati and Carmen and Lucy and Roddy, just give me a moment, because we're talking about some of the challenges with providing school meals across the globe. I want to show you at least one example where a lot of other countries are really quite envious. Have a look at Japan, kids at lunchtime in Japan. Like, I want to be a kid in Japan. Take a look at this video. It's really surprising. Have a look. There you go. Kids are getting involved in lunchtime. They're all ready and prepping, prepping with the food so they know where the food comes from. They have an hour to eat. They've got great etiquette. They help clean up as well. And the food is pretty impressive too. Malika, what do you have for like a model for this is what school meals should look like?
So we actually got this tweet. When I was 9, this person writes, I came to Japan and surprised with the variety and the taste of the school lunch compared to the US. Another person writes in also about Japan. Amber says, it's time to do what they do in Japan. All kiddos responsible for serving school lunch and cleaning the whole school with teachers. It promotes unity. Rodney, I know that your school at one point did an exchange with people from Japan. What did you learn? What did they learn?
So for 4 years, we were contacted by the University of Nagasaki by one of the professors who wanted to learn about how we were getting more fresh fruits and vegetables in school and get kids to eat the fruits and vegetables, because it doesn't matter if you have them if they don't consume them. And there was a study done by the University of North Carolina of our program that demonstrated that kids would, in fact, consume more fruits and vegetables if they had access. And so they wanted to learn how to do that, and we had an exchange program over 4-year period where they would come out and share their model, and we would share our model. And we got similar responses from Mexico and across the country. The United States is really at the forefront in transforming school food. The Farm to School movement, which didn't start until 2000 in California, is now in all 50 states, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture supports Farm to School and promotes it. So we're doing a great job. We're not at the point where we shut down the school for kids to eat yet. We're getting there. Soon we'll have the will to put our kids first and to make serious efforts about education.
One of the great things we've seen, one of the sort of innovations with the school breakfast program that sort of speaks to what Rodney was saying and to the video, when kids eat breakfast after the bell, it often takes place in the classroom so that they're all eating together. It again sort of gets back to the concept of reducing the stigma, so nobody knows sort of who the poor kids are.
So we just have to set the scene a little bit, Lucy, because a lot of people don't understand that in the States, if you can come to school early to eat breakfast, and if you come to school to eat breakfast early, it means you're poor.
Absolutely. So it usually means breakfast is traditionally served in the cafeteria before the school day starts. So it means you have to get to school before the school bell actually rings, and you go to the cafeteria to eat your meal. So most people know that traditionally the kids that are eating in the cafeteria before the school day are the poor kids. That not only the stigma, but the the transportation costs or transportation challenges in trying to get to school. So when breakfast is moved out of the cafeteria and into the classroom where kids can eat together, one of the really great things we've heard from teachers is all the sort of different innovative practices that they have. So it's kids serving each other their meal. So they're making it like a little restaurant, and they're getting involved with their food and getting involved with the meal. They're helping to clean up after one another so that the classroom is clean. And then we also hear, sort of going back to the great examples we've heard about the education components, teachers using the breakfast time to do sort of quiet reading so that kids are able to sort of
Lucy,
take a moment.
you're pretty proud of some of the innovations happening in the United States.
Yeah.
But Carmen, I hear Brazil is way ahead of anyone else. Do you want to blow Brazil's trumpet for us? What's Brazil doing so beautifully with school meals?
Well, the Brazilian program is really an example of what can be done on combining the school feeding program with local production. So in 2009, the Brazilian government decided to pass a law that requires that 30% of the food that is procured for the school feeding program come from smallholder farmers. This has really revolutionized the program all around the country, not just because of the economic benefits that I was talking about before, but because it also allows kids to eat the food that is actually being grown and that they are used to eating because of their cultural traditions or the parts of the country that they live in. They're eating their own cultural foods. It's also, as we were saying, improve the quality, the nutritional quality of the food. This has not been easy for Brazil. It's been quite a process of perfecting this. Also because there are challenges that as we were saying, the issue of, for example, controlling the quality of the food and making sure that the food that is being bought locally is the best food that it can get and not putting kids at risk is an issue. And that has led also to another success story of the Brazilian program, which is the connection between the agriculture sector and the education sector. They both work together very closely to ensure that the demand meets the supply.
All right, Carmen. Thank you so much for being part of our conversation. And Swati and Lucy and Rodney, I know there's so much more to talk about. Even after 2 entire shows. Guess you've been amazing. You've made us very hungry. We appreciate you. Take care, everybody. Malika.
Now, of course, this conversation continues online with #AJStream. And if you want to be part of another show, here's one way you can participate. Want to join the stream via video comment? Here's how you do it. Step 1, go to stream.aljazeera.com/join. Step 2, make sure you're in a well-lit place without too much background noise. Step 3, hit the record button. Look straight into the camera and share your question, your perspective, or story. You can also upload a video file you've already recorded. Just make sure you record it horizontally. Oh, and try to keep it around 30 seconds. And that's one of the ways you can be in the stream.